Your work has been an absolute joy to watch recently, especially the stage protest a few weeks back where you handcuffed yourself to the barricade and you had this. I popped so hard when you hold up the phone that said, how do you sleep at night? It was so dang good. It was really, really good.
Thanks.
But I do want to go back a little bit further because around this time last year, you were also on a really, really great run. You had the wonderful thing going with the Artist Collective. You won the IC title off of Braun. You defended it against Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. And then we didn't see you for a while. And I know you have your reasons, feel free to tell me as little or as much as you want, but just how difficult of a decision was that for you to take that extended time when everything was really coming up Sami Zayn at that time?
It wasn't. Look, it's funny because hindsight now, we know so much more about COVID-19 and we know so much more about the pandemic and everything. But at the time in March, there was a lot of uncertainty, of uncertainty. And we really didn't know what the deal was. And I have some family circumstances that at the time, especially, that would, it made sense to not go in. You know what I mean? And it wasn't an easy decision to make because, as you said, it felt like I actually had more momentum than maybe I'd ever had in WWE. And then to kind of take that gamble, that roll of the dice and be like, well, I have to say no, which is always a very hard thing because wrestlers are already kind of hardwired not to say no. We take a lot of pride in you tell me, you give me a task and I'm going to nail it. That's sort of, there's a pride to the performer in that. So anytime you opt out of something is already difficult enough. And then on top of it, on the biggest stage imaginable. I mean, I would have trouble turning down independent bookings for $200, let alone telling Vince McMahon I can't come into work. It was extremely, extremely difficult for so many reasons. But I guess, on a long enough timeline, everything proved to be fine and proved to have worked out actually maybe for the best. Because the story that we did on the back end of it, coming back and being thrown into the mix with the two championships kind of in the air and with AJ Styles and Jeff Hardy, I think was a really compelling story. And I think, again, it added a lot to SmackDown when I first came back. And I think I picked up right where I left off, if not even better.
Yeah, I was when you came back, first off, I'm a big Sami Zayn guy. So I was happy. But when you came back carrying out that second Intercontinental Championship, I was like, yes. They didn't forget. They brought him back. They brought him back around. As a fan, I was nervous. Like, man, I hope they bring him back. And if he comes back, he gets in that spot. You coming back. How nervous were you about where you might be on the show as far as things were handled or when they were coming back?
Well, I had an idea that this could be where I landed. That was kind of something that we had envisioned when I first said, like, hey, I got to step away, right?
Yeah.
But so much changes in WWE all the time. And you might know some of it. And then there's whatever you know is only the tip of the iceberg. And even what I know is only a fraction of how much things changes and how quick things change. So for it to actually have been seen through was borderline miraculous. And I'm so glad it did. But because you don't get that every day. You don't get, hey, here's an idea. And 5 months down the line, we execute it because so much changes in 5 months, So
sure.
Just the stars lined up and it worked out well. And it's a very cherished time for me in my career. That first month or two when I first came back, just for so many reasons. It's just like it'll always hold a very special place in my mind and my heart. And it's just such a distinct time period with such a different feel from any other time period in my career. It just stands out. It's going to stand out for a very, very long time.
I told myself if I ever had the chance to talk to you, I had to ask about the infamous electric chair segment. When you dropped those dreaded 3 letters on live TV, was that entirely off the cuff? And what was that reaction like when it was all said and done?
So it wasn't okay. So it wasn't entirely off the cuff. But it was off the cuff to a certain degree. And the reaction was, let's say, unfavorable. Since the electric chair met its demise that very same week. But because the thing about that, the time when that segment happened, you have to remember it was the very, I think it was the first episode of Raw. Was it the next night after they had their first pay-per-view?
Yeah,
Or
I think
two
it
nights
was.
later.
Yeah,
It was either the next night or 2 nights later. So
yeah, I think they do
was
Saturday. So it was like 2 days later. Yeah.
right. So it was right on everybody's mind. It was super, super fresh. And I think they had just announced this TV deal. They had just announced that this wasn't just going to be a pay-per-view. This is going to be a competitor and all this sort of stuff. So, and they tell me that we're doing this segment where it's legitimately unplanned questions and anybody could ask anything. So at the time, this was the number one topic in the wrestling world. So you kind of expected to be asked about it.
Right.
So
yeah.
I kind of there was an idea or an understanding that if something is said, I'll react to it. I'm not going to pretend I didn't hear it. But then some of the questions, some of the questions were just a little flat, and I felt like it was on me to make sure that the segment, what they were going for was that it had a very risky, unpredictable feel to it, and I felt like this doesn't have this vibe. As I was out there, I was like, this doesn't have these vibe. These questions are too sterile. So I felt like it was upon me. It was incumbent upon me to sort of make it controversial. And the fact that we're talking about it now, all this time later, I hate to say I was right, but I kind of think I was right to do it, even though I got chewed out for it or whatever it was. I mean, we're still talking about it all this time later. So, I mean, mission accomplished. And I shed a little tear just thinking about what the electric chair could have been.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that could have been super exciting. Really unpredictable questions from the fans, and you really don't know what's coming. Failed experiment, but what can you do?